Welcome to the Afterspin, opinions from thought leaders in our state. I want to ask John Hood and Peg O'Connell. North Carolina and other state governments across the country are suing 6 pharmaceutical companies for their role in the opioid epidemic, and the court case has begun. It's fair to assume the companies will be held liable. Is it fair? How will our state deal with the settlement? Attorney General Stein says he wants $48 billion. Is this going to be like the tobacco settlement, Peg?
You know, as this has been playing out, that's the master settlement agreement with the tobacco industry has been in my mind. The thing that always surprised me is as soon as that master settlement agreement was announced in North Carolina, even though we weren't a party to it, actually got $4.6 billion. The stock price of Philip Morris and R.J. Reynolds both went up. So I think the opioid industry or the drug industry has a vested interest in bringing this to a close in some sort of global way, so that they can put it to rest.
Well, they had negotiations and they weren't able to come to a master settlement like they did with the tobacco company.
But you know, the tobacco settlement fell apart several times before it finally got done.
Well, now
and our
it's
own
in
governor
trial.
was a player in, Governor Easley, a player in helping negotiate that to a close.
Interesting. John, your take on this?
I completely agree that that's the likely outcome, and I believe that what the Attorney General said is that North Carolina would get about 3.5% of the total.
Oh, okay. $48 billion is the total
roughly
for
our
the settlement.
population.
Okay.
But I'm troubled by the whole thing. Of course, I was troubled about the tobacco settlement just because I think it undercuts personal responsibility that people, I understand why juries tend to hold institutions responsible because they have a lot of money. But that's, in my view, that is not the right way to think about this when people make decisions about whether to smoke or whether to abuse any kind of thing, that transferring that responsibility to others, I think, is a mistake. But I do think it's going to happen. And I think that in many cases, just like with the tobacco settlement, they were losing lawsuits, which is why they agreed to this. It is probably a rational business decision to pay off the plaintiff's bar, essentially, which becomes the
let's
state.
go back to the master settlement for just a second. Do you think the way North Carolina dealt with that, we set up 3 different agencies to distribute that money, one of which was the Golden Leaf Foundation, which I think is about the only survivor to it. Do you think that was the right way to do this?
Well, I lobbied to get all the money put into the Health and Wellness Trust Fund that Governor Perdue was the first chair and oversaw it as the governor. So because the money came to North Carolina in order to compensate the state for health care costs caused by the harm that tobacco caused. So it makes perfect sense to me that you would set up some kind of mechanism that would pay back the health care cost and the public safety cost. I mean, the cost to the police, the sheriff, first responders has been enormous. Yeah.
John, you think the master settlement should be a model for this?
Well, I actually agree with Peg about the way the tobacco money was done. It was always preposterous to me to have the settlement and then say one of the harmed parties was all the communities that grew tobacco and put this money in the Golden Leaf Foundation. That made no sense to me. The argument behind the case was impose cost on the general budget for Medicaid and all these health-related costs, and I think that's where the money should have gone. In this case, I would assume that part of the logic would be applied, or hope it would be applied.
We'll have to wait and see how it plays out. Well, thank you for watching the Afterspin. We'll have more video all during the week on ncspin.com.